Hi, this is another Ask Augustin. Today I'm going to talk more about rhythm, but actually about being very free with your rhythm. I'm going to talk about rubato. Rubato originally means, it's an Italian word, it originally means stolen. So you're taking time that you're not supposed to take. You're taking more time than is indicated. And then the question is, do you have to give this time back? Do you have to give back the time you stole, or do you get to keep it? This actually depends on the circumstance. So sometimes there are pieces where underneath the violin line there's something that's rhythmically very steady, that kind of keeps going, kind of continuous, like a pattern or steady rhythmic beats, and that means that any time that you take with rubato, you can still be quite free, but whenever you take extra time, you're going to have to give it back by catching up again. Or if you surge forward towards a certain place, you're going then to have to wait. You have to always be aware of what's going on underneath, and make sure that it's going to line up in specific places. So the freedom is more in between the beats or within the bar. But there are also cases where you look into the score or into the piano part, and you see that the composer has basically planned for the violinist to be quite free. For example, if the other instruments you're playing with are holding a long note, or maybe there's a rest with the fermata on it, and sometimes there's a rest in just the right place, just to allow for some extra time for certain passage work. So those are cases where you don't necessarily have to give back the time that you take. You can take some extra time, be a little bit free, and not worry about it. You keep the time you stole. It's difficult to say exactly what defines good rubato, but I think one of the essential things is not to exaggerate too much, and that there is really always a musical motivation for the rubato, that it somehow feels like it makes sense. And in order for that to be the case, you should think about which notes you're stretching. There should be notes under which there is tension in the harmony, or notes that are particularly important in the melodic flow, maybe the peak of the phrase, and you linger there a little bit. That needs to make sense. And when you go forward, it's important to think about where you're going towards. So there's a certain goal that you have, you kind of go forward towards and phrase towards a certain point. And keeping that in mind, and making sure that you're phrasing towards the right place. So I'm going to give you one example of being a bit free within the beats and within the bar, but staying with the pretty steady pulse. And this is from the second movement of Tchaikovsky's Souvenir de Florence, this beautiful sextet, and in the second movement there is this pattern of strumming, which has to remain quite steady. And above that, the first violin and the first cello, they exchange this beautiful song melody, which is very emotional and gets quite passionate. And there's definitely some flexibility in this melody. It kind of pushes and pulls around, but you shouldn't go so far that people had to actually adjust in a way that really disturbs that pizzicato accompaniment that's going on, because some of what makes this music so beautiful and serene somehow is that it is so steady. So I recorded the pizzicato parts on the piano. I know it sounds terrible, but just to show you maybe how to play around the beat, and you'll see that some of the things I do are actually extremely subtle, like just a tiny bit early here, tiny bit late here, but that is, I think, what it is about. You know, it's not really about the amount of rubato, it's doing it in the right place, then it really is effective. that's where the cello comes in and takes over the melody, and then it keeps getting traded back and forth. So you see that I stretch specific notes. I will stretch slightly this one, just almost imperceptibly. This is on top of a diminished chord. It's a sudden moment of tension, and then it relaxes again. I almost anticipate this note so that I have a little bit more time on it. Yeah, for that gesture. And then here I will stretch slightly the D. It's a suspension, it kind of leans on the note. And then again. And I'm aware of the pulsating pizzicatos underneath. So anytime that I take extra here, I catch up now. And then broaden slightly again for the peak of the phrase, kind of the most intense moment. And then here, similarly, I actually speed up slightly, so in a way it's like a reverse stealing. So I give some time, and then so I can take it at the end of the bar into that cadence when it goes to the F sharp minor. It's kind of a harmonically special moment. So remember, rubato is a wonderful expressive tool, but you always want to think about which note you're stretching, where are you going with the rubato when you're speeding up. And great rubato will actually be quite easy to follow if you're mindful of who's playing with you and if it really makes sense. I hope that's helpful, and I'll see you next time.